Yes, so first I want to thank Glenn Prestwich for this invitation, Dean Tynas Jones for inviting the Alliance for the Arts and Research Universities to be part of this conversation, which the University of Utah is a member of. So we're a cohort of 30 some odd research universities across the United States, both RUVH and RUH universities, and then also some that just have very strong research emphases. That really, and it's an alliance, they are aligned together around supporting the arts on our campuses, in our communities, in all of its manifestations. So it is, I mean, what we're looking at is kind of a T-shaped students where we're going deep in breadth and wide, deep in discipline and wide in breadth, yeah. And so we're looking at both the monodisciplinary student within the arts as well as the impact of the arts on our research campuses. And this initiative grew out of really a top-down imperative of deans and presidents and funding organizations, because what they were seeing is that at a research university, the arts typically are the redheaded stepchild, right? Why? Because, well, big data tells us that teacher ratio to student ratio is like all upside down, right? And we're not getting those research dollars. And, you know, and going on and how we identify as a Research One university, you know, and yet so many of our universities have conservatories within that research model. Where's that voice? How do we push that voice forward to the center of the conversation? A lot of what we're seeing is within this interdisciplinary context. And I want to comment one thing on what Glenn said about, you know, all of these interdisciplinary grants that are available through the NIH. And recently, Susan Callahan from Minnesota, she works in creative economies in Minnesota, did a lit review on, and she just went through the literature. How many times are the arts mentioned within an interdisciplinary, an arts or an integrated multidisciplinary context? She pulled out the top 3,500 articles in which the word interdisciplinarity was mentioned. Any guesses on how many times the arts was mentioned? Who thinks more than 1,000? Raise your hand. More than 100? Raise your hand. Okay, put all, that's less than 100. It is less than 100. Yeah, actually it's less than 10.
Oh my gosh.
3,500 articles. The arts were mentioned 8 times. 5 times in music, 3 times in theater. Hello, thank you very much. We have a lot of work to do. Our universities have a lot of work to do. Our faculty, our students are demanding that we do this work. So A2RU really places arts and design practice as an integral part of a research university imperative. And these must define and lead the change in an increasingly complex world. And I'm speaking to the choir now, so you know I don't have to go down that road. So how did A2RU is it's a very young organization. We're coming up on our 3rd year, and it was spawned by a $500,000 Mellon research grant. The Andrew W. Mellon Foundation launched A2RU through the lens of giving us 3 years to go out and conquer and find out what's going on our campuses. What is the role of the arts on research campuses? Raise your hand if we came and interviewed you on this campus. Okay, so at least 6, 7, 8 people. And that report will be coming out in November at our national conference. Anybody who's coming to that national conference will get a copy. And if you don't come, you can get it on Amazon for $8. So, and what we found, in calling through this and looking at what are the topics that emerged, first of all, I think, and we can all agree, we have a different student now than we had 5 years ago, even 5 years ago, really. I mean, 10 years for sure. But 5 years ago, something shifted, and I think it might have had to do with maybe the iPhone coming out 6.5 years ago. I don't know. I mean, there's been a sea change that has been intimated all along. As I've been listening to this introduction, Doug talked about the churning, within the arts community. And I think we're looking at a new day. I think we're looking at this sea change that happens every few hundred years. And here we are. And it's not really, when Doug was talking about what kind of grants are we, going to be looking at, I think he's right. It's like, we don't know. We don't know. So we're going to put out these broad criteria and see, we're going to put up the sails and see what catches the wind, right? So some of the things that I've identified in reading through these documents really have to do with looking at the higher education model for what it is. And we have inherited something that goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. And I question whether, I think the word siloed was used early on in the conversation. We have inherited a decentralized model. And everything I'm hearing here tonight speaks to needing to do it a different way. So A2RU is taking on the decentralization of our campuses in kind of disruptive ways, through seed grants, through tools that we're developing to innovate and amplify the power of the arts on our campuses, in our societies. So that's one of the things that I've really noticed. That's a real barrier I've seen, is that decentralization that we all struggle with on our campuses. And I don't think anybody is immune to that. The second thing is that going back to this changing student, I think we're looking at a changing workforce. So the Bureau of Labor and Statistics now is saying that this single kind of mono, get a job, stay there for 35 years, retire, live happily ever after on your Social Security, that model is dead, as we all know. But to have the Bureau of Labor say that is kind of remarkable. And what they're saying is they're anticipating people having a minimum of 5 careers within the span of their lifetime. And that's not 5 jobs. That's like 5 big buckets that they're going to pour, 5 to 15 years of their lives in, which is very, very different than when we were coming up through the ranks. So what are we doing with our students? That's another thing that A2RU was invited by the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine to sit on an 8-person working group looking at the role of the humanities and the arts and the impact on the STEM education. And it's a bilateral conversation, right? It's not only about, how are the arts impacting STEM? It's also about how is STEM impacting the arts? So in looking at this, what I'm seeing is, again, A2RU needs to take kind of center stage and push that conversation forward, because it's about, in a sense, it is about workforce preparedness for our students. And I hate to be so kind of dry and analytic about it, but that is what we're talking about. So it is something that A2RU is looking at very, very carefully. And then the third area is these grand challenges, the sticky innovation that we're looking at. So, what are the future-ready skills that we're going to bring forth in our students, and how are we going to do that? And I would say, what's going on here at the University of Michigan, that's where the A2RU's home office is, in Ann Arbor, the University of Michigan. At the University of Utah is, through the Lassonde Center, through this Entrepreneurial Scholars Initiative, these are 2 amazing exemplars that I think we can proudly hang our hats on. So I'm going to stop there, because we've been all kind of talking individually. I think it's time to get into a conversation, right?
Yes, and